Hop out.
Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of the Code Green Show with your host Dean Seidman, and this is our 2022 debut episode. Hope you enjoy. All right, everybody. So as you know, it's 2022 for the Code Green Show, but today we don't only have one special guest. We have a really good special guest, and his name is Dalton Holland. He runs 302Birds. You can check him out on all social media platforms for the most part. Without further ado, Dalton Holland.
Dean Seidman, it is an honor to be here. I love your show, man. I love your logo. I love your attitude more than anything. Love you as a person, brother. And it's the Eagles what brings us together, and I'm so happy to be here tonight. Thank you for having me on the show. Love what you guys do. And as always, God bless and go Birds. How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing well. I was just going to say likewise on that sentiment. I feel like we're in key when it comes to Eagles fandom and all that type of good stuff. So, yeah, anybody who's on here tonight, we are doing a live interactive show tonight. I know you're used to more of a, fireside banter between me and my guests, but tonight we're going to be doing a Q&A, talking about this Eagles past season, talking about the Eagles off season, and why don't you throw in any NFL questions as well? Because Dalton and I are more than qualified and happy to answer. So, yeah, start rolling them in, guys, whenever you're ready, whoever's here. So
even I had a question for you too, Dean. I want you to answer. I think you'll like it. I came prepared too with something for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Kick off the show. Sounds great.
Did you see, just while we're waiting for the questions to roll in, but did you see that? I'm sure you watched the Pro Bowl a little bit. Not much. Pro Bowl kind of sucks, but you saw Darius Slay and Quandre Diggs, and I'm sure you heard about that relationship. Well, Quandre Diggs is a free agent. I just learned that today. Would you like him to come on our team for safety help?
That would be great. I mean, we kind of have an abysmal secondary, and I don't think it would hurt to add somebody, especially if there's chemistry there, it seems like, between him and Darius.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I like the chemistry there. I like the attitude, because you remember the Super Bowl season, what it means to have not only chemistry, but just friendship.
Absolutely.
And I think that they have a pretty good friendship. I like it.
I do as well. So I see a couple comments in here, but, just to start out the show, let's shout out the Up for Debate podcast, Up for Debate Sports podcast. Let's go. Hype for this collab.
Thank
you.
You.
Let's go, dude. Let's go. Let's get excited tonight.
Yeah, shout out to 302Birds, shout out to Up for Debate podcast, and of course, shout out to the Code Green Show. I'm sure this is the first of many collabs, guys. So definitely tune in. There's a ton of good content here. Two passionate Eagles fans. Probably two crazy Eagles fans, too, if I'm being honest, Dean. But, I mean, hey, that's what makes us great.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm hoping these comments will start coming in here soon. I'm really excited.
It's all good. It's all good. They'll come in soon. It just takes some time sometimes. Even on 302Bird, it even takes us sometimes a lot, most of the time to get some stuff rolling in. I even came with a couple questions. If you want me to even keep asking them to keep the show rolling, just let me know.
All right. Well, we have a go Birds in the chat for my sister.
Hey, go Birds. Shout out to Dean's sister. She definitely knows then. But so actually, I remember I looked at the notes in the description. And I actually, you can see, I lined it up. I have like capital and everything written down. So I wanted to ask you, me and the Philly sports guy on TikTok were talking about that the other day. And we were talking about the real opportunity for the Eagles to trade Gardner Minshew and Andre Dillard really at their highest value right now. I mean, if you had to get rid of those both guys, one guy, I mean, what are your thoughts? What should we do with both of the guys really?
I would say unload both of them and try to maximize this team's potential in any way possible. I like Gardner's, presence as a backup, and I think he has experience. And, he did his job when he came in and, relieved Hurts and stuff. And with the Dillard and everything, he's not really starting. I mean, it seems like Mailata has for sure shadowed over his abilities. So I would honestly like to get rid of both of them and have some new faces in the locker room, maybe add some contributors because, with Dillard's positional flexibility, he could play pretty much, guard and tackle if need be. And then Gardner Minshew, some people consider him an actual starter, which would be cool. I mean, he was a starter. Not to disrespect him, but an actual starter, some people might consider. So, yeah, let's get rid of both of these guys and improve this team in any way possible. Give it a thumbs up from me.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Dean. I mean, I think, like you said, get some capital, get some contributors. That would be really nice to have. Like, even if I have a couple of trade scenarios where it's like trade up in the draft for maybe Kyle Hamilton or Aiden Hutchinson, but it's just, it'll be really interesting to see what they do with that capital this year because they have a lot of capital.
They absolutely do, and they could pretty much do whatever they want if they're smart. But, Howie Roseman makes the decisions at the end of the day, and I'm lukewarm with Howie Roseman. So let's get our first question in here, Dalton. Kicking it off with my sister. Who is your favorite Eagles player, Dalton? You will go first with these questions, and then I will reply second since you are my special guest.
Well, thank you again for having me. If I had to say my favorite Eagles player, there's a couple guys I could toss up. But if I have to be honest, it's a stereotypical answer, and it's the guy that's sitting on Dean's right shoulder. If you're watching the video like me on his left shoulder, it's Brian Dawkins, man. I mean, watching that guy. See, I always do that to his StreamYard, bro. If I wanted to say Michael Vick right now, there it is. Anyway, but the point is, I just love Brian Dawkins. I think what he did for the city on and off the field, that's the real thing when you think about players. But if I had to be honest, it's probably somebody that I watch. My real answer, when I was younger, it was Dawkins, but now as I got older, it's Deshaun Jackson, man. I mean, he was the real guy that made me get into Eagles football. When his preseason, I don't know if you remember the play when he returned the punt on the Patriots. It was a preseason game. I said to my dad, I said, I'm drafting that guy in fantasy football, and I like him. And I was 8-9 years old at the time. He was the real guy. Miracle at the Meadowlands. There's so many great plays with Deshaun Jackson that you can remember. I just hope to God that he retires an Eagle, but that's my favorite. What about you, boss?
That's a really good one. I'm probably going to have to go with the guy to the left of me, the right of me, Brian Dawkins, Weapon X. I mean, I just think of my Eagles fandoms, just starting from a little kid. I used to love and adore Brian Dawkins. I mean, his presence on the field is undeniable. Probably one of the best safeties to ever play the game. I mean, his resume speaks for itself. And I just love the way he played smash mouth football and made opposing offenses think twice before they came to Philly because they know they were going to get smashed in the mouth. So B-Doc is my favorite player of all time, but current has to be my dude on the left, Devontae Smith. Because Devontae Smith not only has been an awesome contributor to the team, I think he's going to go down in history as one of the best Eagles receivers of all time. I'm sure you would agree. And I think what he brings to the table as a rookie, I mean, I was really impressed with it, and I think he could only expand on that skill set and just become a more well-rounded receiver because you see the skill set that he came into at the league, Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, played against some really good comp in college, and then he comes to the NFL. His route running is already super polished. So that's what I really, really like about him. Number 2, he has a great attitude, and number 3, sky's the limit with him. So seems like we have another question on here, but it doesn't really look Eagles related, so I don't know how you'll feel about this, but we shall see. Kyle Rosner says, go Rams. Kyle Rosner is currently staying in California right now, so I can understand that, but I know he's an Eagles fan at heart, and I think he might just be embracing his, colors at the moment. But,
hey, I'll give you something real quick, Dean.
Sure.
So back to the Rams. So there's a kid that went to my high school from Delaware. His name's Troy Reeder. Let us know in the chat if you know him, Kyle. Troy Reeder. He's your middle linebacker. He went to my high school. I do want to see him get a Super Bowl, but I'm an LSU fan, so you probably know where my head's at.
No doubt.
I don't know. Who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl, Dean?
It's hard for me to pick because I think both teams, I don't have a problem with winning. And I would like to say I'm rooting for the Rams, but at the end of the day, it would be really cool to see Joe Burrow get a ring that young after all the adversity he has come through and the resurgence of that young defense over there in Cincinnati. And I just really like Jamar Chase and all the offensive weapons that, they come onto the field with. I do think the Rams have a more talented roster. I mean, a lot of people would agree. I think everybody would agree. But is Joe Burrow going to come up clutch time and play really well? He very well could. So I would like the Bengals to win just for Joe Burrow's purpose and the young team around him. But I do think the Rams are going to win. And that's where I stand with that.
Yeah, I don't blame you for thinking that either. I definitely think that if I was a betting man, the Rams would be, the team that I would want. But it's just going to be it's going to be a great game at the end of the day, man. I mean, I think we got lucky because we've had Super Bowls that we've seen it then and again. It's going to be cool to either see, I think, Joe Burrow get a ring, or I really like Aaron Donald, and I think that he deserves a ring for his Hall of Fame career. So it'd be cool to see him get a ring too, but it's going to be a great game.
Absolutely. So as we're waiting for people to come in here, we could just do questions back and forth. So you can start. I'll give you a question back. Then once we get more fans in the stream, we'll go back to the fans.
Yeah, sounds great, man.
Yeah, so whenever you're ready, just let me know, and we'll proceed.
I'm all good if you are. Let me know whenever you're good. I mean, like I said, if you want to ask me a question, I have questions for you. Whatever you want first, I got you, brother.
Sure. So probably a good introduction question is, when did you ideate 302 Birds? Where did this idea come from? I know there's a large passion with the Philadelphia Eagles and football in general based on your resume, but where did 302 Birds come from, and where did it start?
Well, I really appreciate you asking that question because I think it's interesting, because I definitely have thought about the name for my podcast for a long time. Sorry, I was copying the link. I'm sharing it on my Facebook right now, and the audio was like, no worries. I'm putting it on my Facebook, get some family and some friends in here. But anyway, the point is, so 302 Birds. Actually, I'm originally from South Jersey, and Dean and I have talked about this before. Jersey guys are the best. Everybody knows in the chat. But anyway, I grew up South Jersey. You know how it is in South Jersey. You're an Eagles fan, or you're basically, getting picked on. So grew up a diehard Eagles fan. I watched one of your videos today, like you said, out of the womb. I was born into it. And it was just kind of the way that it was. Always grew up watching the Eagles. And then in 2017, I was lucky enough to go to my school in Philadelphia and watch the Eagles win the Super Bowl in front of me. So that was really cool. But just kind of grew up with my friends, always watching the Eagles, like most guys, that are Eagles fans. You understand it if you're an Eagles fan. It's a real, it's not just a fandom, it's a lifestyle, is what I always like to say. And it's something you eat, sleep, breathe. You love your team. And sometimes we get mistaken, Dean, as being like rude or things like that. I think that there are Eagles fans that can be that way, or passionate. So the point is, I'm from Delaware. A lot of people were passionate in Delaware about the Eagles, and a lot of people didn't know it. I moved to Delaware when I was a little bit older, and that's where I met all my friends that I do the podcast with. And it's meant for people in the Delaware area. The 302 is the area code, and anybody that's a Delaware Eagles fan, we encourage you to give us a listen. I mean, any Eagles fans, but really Delaware Eagles fans. It's kind of built for you guys. Have local sponsorships, everything. But it came one night. I was sitting in bed, and I thought, I want to start an Eagles podcast. I had up for debate, and I was like, it's just more fun to talk about your favorite team, Dean. And that's probably where my next question for you is, where did the Code Green show come from, and how did you get that idea? Because I honestly don't know off the top of my head, and I think it's a good idea to refresh your viewers.
Sure. So I talked about this on my very first episode of the Code Green show. Not sure if you saw it, but it is what it is. I had Brent Nalbona as my first guest, and he's a diehard Eagles fan. Brent, if you're watching this, I love you to death, and I really appreciate you helping Code Green Show get a name a little bit when I was a small guy, and just giving me the confidence to keep going. So Brent Nalbona was the first thing. So Code Green Show started simply because I had a significant injury to my ACL. I tore my ACL playing football. I had gotten injured, and I had a lot of free time. So in that free time, I was playing Madden. I was, immersing myself in the game of football. I was on the sidelines for my football team in high school, which was Cherokee and Marlton. And I just wanted to pretty much put all this passion that I had stored up, because I know I wasn't going to be able to put it on the field for at least a year, and put it into something that people could actually hold and feel. So that's where the Code Green show came to be. So we started out initially just by talking about it and seeing where things would go with it. And then I ended up pitching this idea for a Superfan Eagles show where I would interview special guests, superfans, you name it, to this local TV station called RVN TV. And they wanted proof, and they wanted, substance behind my reasoning and everything, why the show would be successful. So I said, based on the demographic of Eagles fans and, my friend group and friends in general, and just my age in general, I think this would be a really good show, because the current shows and the audiences that you have don't really correlate to this Eagles fandom and all the young fans that we have. So as far as viewership is concerned, it would be a really good idea to not only talk about the Eagles, but get really cool guests on the show that a lot of people may not have heard from on other talk shows. So Code Green Show came about. They ended up approving the idea. And yeah, I became a part of RVN TV for a little bit. I did a full season of episodes there where we interviewed Vince Papale, Rob Motti, Ken Dunnick, just to name a few. And then we even interviewed the official Rocky impersonator for all Philadelphia sports. So he was a really, really cool guest, and he was awesome. He was great to have. And yeah, Code Green Show started small, based out of Cherry Hill. And I decided to go independent with Code Green Show based on the success that I was having. And I wanted to produce on my own and create content on my own. And here we are today. Long-winded, but to the point.
Hey, well, that's how it goes, man. I mean, whatever, sometimes that's what a lot of people always want to hate on, and I'm sure you've dealt with this like I have. People want to hate on you for having a show or.
Oh, yeah. They're like, oh, show's a joke, yada, yada, yada. This is BS that you're getting these guests on your show. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. So.
And it's mostly because people are jealous. Sometimes they don't understand how far you've came, how far you've worked. And, to that, I just say you can't pay attention to it, just like you haven't, because of what you've built here and what I'm building here. I mean, got to give both of us props. I mean, it's fantastic. And I think that it makes the Eagles Nation proud. And it's the beautiful thing about being an Eagles fan is just kind of, this kind of brotherhood, this unspoken brotherhood, I should say, that we have, where you text me and you're like, hey, you want to come on Code Green Show? I'm like, yeah. Or I text you, hey, you want to come on 302Birds? It's, yep, I'll be there. You know what I mean? And I love that about Eagles Nation because I don't think that there's any NFL fan base in the world that immediately it's like you have the same colors on as me. It's almost like a gang. It's like you have the same colors on as me. It's like, oh, we're good. It's like as long as it's Sunday, we're good,
Absolutely. So just to add on that sentiment real quick. So purpose of the Code Green Show was to hear the fans' perspective. I feel like a lot of these other Eagles shows and podcasts are not really truly getting the fans' perspective. They're kind of just doing a general overview of news that's in the media, like everybody has access to. So I think with Code Green Show and 302Birds, we kind of have a personalized approach where we put the fans first and foremost, and we want to hear the fans' perspective. And we actually provide unique stats and statistics. Not only myself, but Dalton does as well. And we put a lot of hard work into our shows, and it's just really cool to see the fruits of our labors. So let's get to some of these fan questions, Dalton. I'm really excited to get started. So I will let you take this question, and then, I'll give a rebuttal. Kyle Rosner, back at it again. If you don't mind, read the question out loud.
The Super Bowl is going to be one of the largest games where people can now actively and legally bet money. How will this affect future games in the industry overall? Great question, Kyle. Thank you for tuning in. What I got to say to this is it's going to be interesting because in some states it's illegal still. So for me in Delaware, for example, in the 302, I can't sports bet yet. And it drives me crazy because I'm good at it. I just got out of school in Pennsylvania. I was making good money. I'll tell you what, Dean, I'll tell you the craziest bet I ever made. I won't disclose the amount. But on a $10 bet, it was like 300 to 1. On a Phil Mickelson bet when he was in last place. And I don't know if you guys remember the tournament that he won back in May. I was sitting at a Phillies game with a guy that comes on my podcast a lot, Frank, and he goes, bet on Phil Mickelson. So I love sports betting. It's fun. It's a lot more fun when the Eagles are winning and in the Super Bowl. But at the end of the day, this game is definitely going to affect future games in the industry. And I think it already has. But it's going to be interesting to see what platforms arise, who kind of tries to change the game, because that's what's interesting is there's always new ways to bet. There's not always different betting. You're always risking your money, maybe Bitcoin, but there's always new ways like, FanDuel or whatever, the one where you can customize and build like a fantasy lineup. It's always more attractive. So football, it owns a day of the week over the church. So when you think about that,
yes,
it's crazy to think about how it's already affected it. What do you think, Dean?
So, the game of the Super Bowl, there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of advertisements involved. There's a lot of commercials involved. And I remember when I was an undergrad, we had to do an assignment where we would watch the Super Bowl commercials. We would write down a few details that we thought we liked about it. And then we would predict how much money that you think they cost. So all of us were all off. And we ended up finding out that it cost millions of dollars to get even 30 seconds of a Super Bowl commercial on playing during the Super Bowl. So any of these sponsors and any of these commercials that you see during the Super Bowl, they're paying handsomely to get their airtime. And, as far as to affect the future games in the industry overall, let's talk about where the Super Bowls are in the next couple of years. So I believe it's Arizona, then it's Las Vegas, speaking of betting, and then it's New Orleans. So if we talk about those three, specifically LA or Las Vegas, rather, that is a huge, huge, huge betting. I guess you could call, I don't know, haven, betting heaven, betting haven.
Betting haven. I definitely agree.
Yeah. So just the industry overall in general, I think the NFL is affected by the Super Bowl at large because it's the most important game of the year, obviously, and teams work very hard to get there. But as far as future implications, I could expect more sports betting, more advertisements, more commercials, and hopefully more fans, because with COVID this past year, it affected fandom at large. And I just hope that returns to some normalcy in the near future.
Yeah, man. COVID has definitely it's been sucky on football because, it's not the same. And you definitely understand that because you're a fan like me, and it hasn't been. But at the end of the day, it's like we'll take what we can get, but it's definitely not the same, So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I just think, like you said, Arizona is a betting haven. So it's going to be really fun to see what happens there with it. I didn't even know the next Super Bowl is going to be there. But moving on to the next question, I'll just field it real quick for you. Goldberg, trade Rager. Couldn't agree more.
About trading.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I think at this point, look, here's what I'll say, Dean. I don't want to trade him either. I'm with you. You invested a first-round pick in this guy. You might as well keep him for another year, even if he becomes a wide receiver 3 or 4. Whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like, I think just mentally, I don't know if he's going to be able to return. You know how tough this city is to play for. What do you think?
I mean, his production speaks for itself. Why would you want to bring back somebody who has significantly underperformed? And you look at the guys that we picked ahead of him, and it's like kind of just like a slap in the face, because you know that you could have had a true number one and the guys that were drafted above him. You know who I'm talking about. But I really don't like to give too much credit to that team. But generally speaking, I mean, you hope he pans out and maybe you give him one more year, but I'm under the, belief that you have to release him because you're not getting the production that you expect out of a first round pick. And I think that it's time for, some new faces in this wide receiver core, especially if you want Jalen to improve. Having a receiver like Rager doesn't really help him.
Yeah. It's going to be tough because, that's one thing that actually the Philly sports guy and I were talking about on TikTok the other night, and he made a very good point saying that basically the Eagles, if they don't trade for a big name wide receiver this year, it's a mistake. And at first I was like, wait, what? We have Rager, we have Devontae, let the two develop. We have Quez, you know what I mean? I don't know, maybe draft a guy in the second or third round, but I don't know if we need to go out and get Chris Godwin, Devontae Parker, Allen Robinson, Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, all these guys, DK Metcalf. We don't need any of them. But I thought about it, and he made a good point. And he said, next year, do we really want to have to say we didn't give Jalen Hurts enough at the end of the season and end next season with a question mark again on Jalen Hurts? Or do we want to go into the offseason basically saying this is our guy or this is not our guy? We gave him everything that we could, and he still didn't succeed. He's not our guy. So that's kind of where my head's at. As far as wide receivers and free agency goes.
Right. So hoping more of these fans' questions pull in. Blasted this link out. Looks like the eyeballs are increasing in my top left corner. So hopefully that means more questions. I don't care what the question is, guys. Let us know. We are happy to answer. We love football. We love the Eagles. And we just want to provide the best insight possible.
I have a question for you real quick, Dean.
I
was reading the free agency today, preparing for tonight, and I think Zach Ertz is a free agent again next season. And we all know, let's be honest, Dean, he's definitely going to retire an Eagle. You know him. He's a teddy bear. He wants to retire here.
Big time.
Do you think it would be as early as next season that he would be ready to come back?
I don't know. I mean, I know he only has to sign, a day contract or whatever to retire as an Eagle, but I think he's, Kyler used him appropriately. I'm not gonna bash Ertz in any way, but I think Goddard's the future moving forward, but I wouldn't mind a reunion with Ertz if it means he retires as a Bird, no doubt.
Well, what's interesting today is I saw, and this is half from Kyler, half from Hurts, but Ertz was actually the third most targeted tight end in the league. First was Kelsey, second was Mark Andrews, but after that it was literally Ertz, and I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. I see all these eyeballs joining. Start asking these questions. We're really excited.
Yeah, one thing I even have written down on my draft here is we're going to talk about this on 302 Birds in a little bit. But how would you feel about the Eagles trading up for Aiden Hutchinson? We have 15, 16, and 19. Hypothetically, let's say they give 15 and 16, move up to get Aiden Hutchinson, and then at 19, let's say Nakobe Dean falls because Washington takes Malik Willis. What do you think of that?
I actually saw that take on your account last night or the day before, and I saw the TikTok as well. Doan's TikTok's amazing. Go follow that guy. It's 302 Birds. I honestly think it's a realistic scenario. I mean, we talked about it briefly, but, Derek Barnett definitely on the way out. He's not going to be coming back as an Eagle, that's for certain. And if we want to look at edge rusher, I think Aiden Hutchinson is the best. He reminds me a lot of a Watt or a Bosa with the type of hype that he brings. I think his production doesn't lie. It speaks for itself. He went to a school like Michigan where, they just produced animals over there. And Aiden Hutchinson for, what'd you say?
15 and 16.
Yeah, for 15 and 16. I might say go ahead and do it because you might be getting the next TJ Watt. You might be getting the next Nick Bosa. And if you realize the talent that's in this draft and you look at the positions, I guess you could say of surplus, go get Aiden Hutchinson because you might not find another player like him in that entire draft. But that's a whole nother debate.
Yeah, the draft this year is interesting. There's definitely not a QB. I think you definitely got to stick with Hurts again next year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's not a QB that I want. I mean, I wrote down a couple names of what I think Howie would consider. I think number one is Deshaun Watson because of age and talent. Yep. Number two is Wilson after that. And number three, I have Malik Willis. And then four, I even have Kyler Murray just because that's completely out of the question. He'll be in Arizona again next year, I think. But
right.
I don't get that either. Like, that was so weird, that whole scenario.
Yeah, that was a really weird scenario. Yeah, I like the quarterback talk, and I'm in the same boat as you. Actually, spot on. Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, and then I've heard a lot of good things about Willis, and apparently in the bowl game that he recently played, and he actually played really well. And I had a chance to watch some of those highlights, and seems like he has a decent arm. Would I be willing to spend a first-round pick on him? Absolutely not. And I think we have to use there's 3 first-round picks, very wisely because it could really dictate the future of our franchise more than we actually realize. And if you're going to package any of those picks, it better be for a high-quality starter. Because if we're trading up and we're not getting somebody who's going to be a difference maker day one, there's no point.
Yep. And that's what I like about Hutch is he's a day one. He's NFL ready. I think he's even more ready than Thibodeau at Oregon. I think he's more ready than him. So, I like Hutch. I think it's going to be interesting to watch him play. But even Kyle Hamilton, I don't think that I would mind the Eagles trading up for that safety. But what's my take on Barnett? All right, I'll field it real quick. This guy needs to go. Like Dean said earlier, he's trash. I mean, he's penalty-ridden. And when you think about it, Dean, you remember because you're a fan. Remember when he came in here, what they were saying about him, the expectations we had?
Yeah, because he tied Reggie White's sack record at Tennessee.
Breaking Reggie White.
Yeah.
Like, you think that this guy's going to be the next great defensive end. And I'm not saying Barnett's bad. Like, he's came up clutch for us when he's needed to. Super Bowl, give the guy credit for picking up the fumble. But at the end of the day, he definitely hasn't done what Reggie White has done. And I think at this point, he's just penalty-ridden. It wouldn't shock me. I'm going to call it now. I bet you he goes to a team like the 49ers that likes an edge rusher. And they're like, ooh, maybe the Eagles. I said this on one of my podcasts the other night, and you'll probably agree with this. In the free agency, I think a lot of people look at the Eagles and go, oh, they don't know what they're doing with this team. And that kind of ends up being a benefit for us.
Yeah.
Because it makes a player get more value.
Absolutely. And I was thinking that as you were talking. So my question follow-up for you, Dalton, before we tackle some of these more questions because they're coming in hot. So do you think that fumble recovery by Barnett outweighs all of the negative that he has done for this organization?
Actually, you know what, Dean? I would say yeah. Because when you think about it, if I think about it and you told me that right now, Dalton, you can either pick having 2 years of Derek Barnett, or 3 years, really. I mean, he's done some good things, but really 3 years of penalties and frustration with this
Not
guy.
enough to want us to keep him, unfortunately.
I don't. I think it's almost like kind of like he was meant for us at one time and he worked with us at one time, but now in our current life right now, he doesn't work. Or in our current scenario where the Eagles want to go, where the Eagles are trying to move, where they're trying to grow and get growth, I don't think that he's in that equation. Unfortunately, love the guy, have an emotional connection to him because he picked up the ball, but football's a business, you know.
Absolutely. So next question. Actually, I'm gonna wrap up this Derek Barnett talk with a quick nugget here. So we do still have Brandon Graham. He's going to go down as one of the best Eagles in history. It was a huge blow to our defense losing him just from like a leadership perspective and a production point of view. And, he was instrumental in our Super Bowl run. And then we have Josh Sweat, who I really like. I think he has a ton of potential. I like his quick burst and his physicality. And then I look at guys that we drafted last year, like Milton Williams. I think Milton Williams, his positional versatility, being able to play a 1 or a 3 technique or even on the outside, I think that gives us a lot of flexibility with him. And, even some other guys on the practice squad. I mean, we have guys waiting in the balance to take Derek Barnett's spot. So I think it's time for him to go. And if you want to get a surefire guy, it's definitely Aiden Hutchinson. On to the next question. What's up with all this Ridley talk?
All right. I'll field it. It's good talk. It's definitely good talk because that means that the Eagles want to see what they have with Hurts next year, and if they don't, they'll flip him. And we'll have Devontae Smith and Calvin Ridley, which is a pretty lethal combo. So I'm glad that they're talking about it because I've heard a quote that I think is very true in life. Speak it into existence. And it could happen. I don't think it's not going to happen. There's a wide receiver that I would rather have than Ridley, but I would not say that I don't want Ridley. I just think that Ridley is going to ask us a high price tag. And I know that Ridley has mental health issues, and I mean this in the nicest way possible. Josh said it on my podcast, and I definitely agree with what he said. Look at what's going on with Ben Simmons right now. Philadelphia, unfortunately, is not a city, I think, where you need to have thick skin. You know what I'm saying? You need to be able to take criticism well. And if Ridley's not going to be able to handle that criticism, this is just going to blow up in our face. What do you think?
So I think Calvin Ridley, undeniable. I mean, he's a great talent in this league when he's on the field, when his head's in check and all that, all that stuff. I think just to have the Alabama connection is huge. I think a lot of us fans undervalue that because any reps are reps. And the fact that you would have a trio from Alabama would be really, really cool. And I think Ridley brings something to the table that we don't have with our current wide receivers. And I think the route running combination between him and Devontae Smith, that would confuse a lot of secondaries, man. It really would. And I wouldn't mind having Calvin Ridley, but I hope that his mental health is his top priority right now and he works on himself, because at the end of the day, we're humans and, football comes secondary. But if all that stuff is sorted out and he's in his best head state and he's headstrong and he wants to come and play for a city that will love him and root for him and also will hate on him when he's doing well, come to Philly. But you have to have that mentality going in. Otherwise, it won't be a good fit because that was a super great comparison and analogy talking about Ben Simmons because Ben Simmons, you see what's going on with him, all this money that we pay to Ben Simmons is down the drain. So,
yep.
All right, next question here. We need a big target receiver. I would like to take this one because I've been under this belief system for such a long time, and I really just want to talk about it. So we haven't had a big target receiver since Alshon Jeffrey. And when we had Alshon Jeffrey in our offense, he added a wrinkle to it, and it was a good wrinkle. The fact that he was able to dominate opposing DBs, no matter who it was, go up for those 50-50 catches like he's rebounding a basketball and come down with it. And, he ultimately helped us win a Super Bowl, and he was key. He was instrumental in us winning a Super Bowl. So we're going to talk about big target receivers. I'm going to talk about a couple in the draft, and then I'm going to talk about 1 or 2 free agents that I think might be good fits. So Number 1, Treylon Burks. I believe he plays at Arkansas. I don't know if you've seen any of his film, but I really, really like him as a player. And I think his, above the rim, like the scouts like to call it, his above the rim style of play would really play well on our team. He's a 6'3" guy. Definitely plays above the rim, and he's also extremely fast and really good after the catch. So you give me after the catch with the above the rim play style, sign me up for it all day long. Just don't spend one of our first 3 picks on it unless you really think that he's being targeted by other teams in the league. Then take him with your 3rd first-round pick, and you won't hear any complaints out of me or probably Eagles Nation in general because you're getting somebody that can grow with Hurts on this young receiving core. Imagine you have somebody like Treylon Burks, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Hurts, plays well with an equipped receiving core. That's something really exciting. Another guy that I was thinking about kind of slipped my mind. It came back to me. USC's Drake London. 6'5", physically gifted. He would be a plug-and-play day one starter in our offense, and I think he would help out Jalen Hurts more than we actually think because – his frame is phenomenal. He could run any route in the route tree. He makes tough catches.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab something to drink. I'm just going to run downstairs real quick.
No, you're good, man. He makes these tough catches look extremely easy. And I think that he would be a day one fit with Jalen Hurts. So in the draft, Treylon Burks and Drake London, write those down. Code Green Dean told you about those guys. Shout out to my brother posting the Eagles emojis. Appreciate that. So I don't believe that Metcalf will be a free agent, although it would be really cool to have him. I think the big name guys that we're talking about in free agency, and I'm sure Dalton could add to this. As far as big body receivers in free agency, I'm thinking of like Mike Williams. I'm thinking of him. I think you could put him in for the right price, and he would be a really cool contributor. And it would kind of be like Alshon Jeffrey-esque, where it's not like he was bad in Chicago, and it's not like Mike Williams is bad in Los Angeles, but you look at the shares over there, he's really not getting as much looks as he should based on the talent in that offense with Keenan Allen, one of the league's prime receivers, and then Austin Eckler is a fantasy monster. And you have guys like Guyton and Parham coming on the scenes in fantasy football. So, Dalton, you could add to this. What free agent targets would you target as far as like big body guys? And is there anybody in the draft that you think that would fit?
Yeah, and this is a great question. And back to the big body thing, I just wanted to reiterate everything you just said. Drake London, 6'5". Love the idea of having a big name wide receiver back in Philly. A Harold Carmichael type of player. We need it. And I think that the reason that the Eagles haven't done it yet is I think that they're a little bit afraid, Dean, and you'll probably agree. I think that they're just afraid for QB development, that having a guy like that is going to make them more prone to throw interceptions, more risk. You know what I mean? Like having a deep threat guy, the QB isn't going to throw the ball unless the deep threat's wide open. So your interception, I would say, risk is a lot lower. Whereas if you're throwing it up to somebody like Alshon Jeffrey, but like you said, it was a good wrinkle in our offense. I liked it too because
I miss it, honestly.
And look at what happened in the Super Bowl and in the NFC Championship. The 2 plays that I think changed momentum were those catches that Alshon Jeffrey just went up and got it. So I love the idea of having a big name guy, but in the free agency, somebody that I really, really, really want is actually going to be I really want Chris Godwin. He's from Delaware. He just got done playing with Tom Brady. At first, I didn't like the kid. I didn't want him.
ACL? Does that scare you at all? With the ACL, does that scare you?
That's why I didn't like him. It scared the hell out of me because you know how hard it is to come back from that. But
sure.
At the end of the day, it's just Chris Godwin. I think he's a mentally tough guy. I actually have seen him play in person in high school. So my high school and his high school were rivals.
I didn't know that.
When I was like 13 or 14 years old, he tore it up on the field right in front of me. So to see him go play for the Eagles, where in Delaware, where we're at, is only about 45 minutes away, I love it. But the main reason I really like his game is I think he's a great route runner, and I think he has a decent enough physical presence where I think you just pick him up this year, and even if you go out and draft somebody too, and then you use Quez as well, like I don't have a problem with having a great rotation of wide receivers because if it doesn't work out this year with Hurts, whatever QB comes next season is going to be able to, utilize that, whoever it is. Or say Hurts sucks, and then week 10 we want to put in Minshew if we still have him. Minshew has a complete weaponry to use. Who knows what happened? Look at what happened with Foles because we had a complete weaponry.
Right. So are you a fan of Mike Williams?
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that was a great thing that you mentioned too. Underutilized.
You look at these top 5 free agents, not to cut you off, but we look at these top 5 free agents, and Mike Williams isn't even listed in that top 5, and it's actually really surprising. You're telling me if Keenan Allen wasn't on that offense, he wouldn't be a wide receiver 1? I have a really hard time believing that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah, Keenan Allen really overshadows him. You're right, and I think he would fit in this offense where I said it to the Philly sports guy, and he kind of agreed, but he kind of didn't. And I said, I want to put Devontae Smith at wide receiver too. And at first, I think he kind of took it the wrong way, saying,
I could see that.
I meant that he was bad. And I meant, no.
Not at all.
I want to have a big body wide receiver 1 that guys have no option to double cover, that it opens up things for Devontae Smith to where he can take it over top or even play in the slot where Quez could take it over top.
And even better. Yeah.
There's so many different options, where Devontae would tear it up in the spot, but adding Mike Williams into the mix, great take.
And then side note, you have the veteran leadership, you have the veteran experience. It's somebody that's been in the league longer than the Devontae Smith has that could actually give some valuable experience and, teach him some things. Because when you're bringing in that rookie, it's kind of like Devontae teaching him. But if you bring in somebody that could teach Devontae, who already has a very, very polished skill set, I mean, I'm almost leaning towards that at this point.
Or here's another one. I don't know if you brought this up when I was away. This is another free agent. I thought you might like this. This is a guy that I've been crazy about since he's been in the NFL. Devontae Parker, man, underutilized in that Miami offense. They just drafted Jalen Waddle. I think that they have another wide. Oh, Will Fuller, I think, is there. I just really think that Devontae Parker is an underappreciated wide receiver. He could be a wide receiver 1. And I don't mean that meaning the best wide receiver on the team. I mean the physical 50-50 ball guy that you're saying, the old school wide receiver. The old school wide receiver 1.
All right. A question from my brother who is very knowledgeable in football, working these long hours as a doc. So shout out to you, bro. What about a big boy power running back? So my brother loves LeGarrette Blount, and he loved what Jay Ajayi brought to the offense. What do you think about bringing in a power back that's a little bit elevated than Jordan Howard and that you could feed the rock to 25-plus times a game?
Yeah. I'll tell you something real quick, Darren. If the Eagles – Darian or Darren?
Darian.
Thanks for tuning in, Darian. I'll tell you something real quick. I love LeGarrette Blount too, and Jay Ajayi. I thought the Eagles should have kept both those guys longer, but you know how the Eagles feel about physical running back. If the Eagles would have traded up last year for Najee Harris, I wouldn't have been mad at all. Because look at Derrick Henry. Look at what he's doing in the NFL right now. He's tearing it up. So I think if the Eagles could have had somebody that good, that would have been really interesting to see. But at this point right now, I don't know if we need to bring somebody in next season because I look at Howard and I'm like, Howard is another guy. We were talking about guys that didn't get a fair shot. I think Howard kind of got put on the back burner in Chicago when he was there.
Sure,
because first they had Tariq Cohen who kind of overshadowed him, and then David Montgomery came in towards the end. And I think both those guys are great running backs, but I think Howard didn't really get a fair shot at being that power back. And the burst we've seen from him, he's really good.
For sure. Yeah, so I'm under the same belief system as far as having a power running back. I think if you're able to alleviate the pressure from your quarterback running it 25 times a game and you're able to get more than 3 yards per carry, I mean, the Eagles offense and rushing offense in general speaks for itself. We have one of the best O-lines in the NFL, if not the best. I think we're probably top 3 if we're going to argue. But I think that speaks for itself. I mean, all-purpose yards. You look at the rushing game and you look at the passing game. If you could have a good balance between the two and rely on one when the other one's not as good, I mean, the team will perform better. So I would be really excited to have, somebody said, Richard L. Johnson said, yeah, we need a big boy running back. I know we have Howard, but he's no Chubb. I actually really like that take. And it's justified because Chubb's an all pro. But how would you feel about like a Derrick Henry Chubb-esque guy on a reasonable contract?
Yeah, I don't know if I didn't write down any free agent running backs, but I saw a couple names today when I was before the show to prepare. I wanted to look up all the 2022 free agents just to get a gauge for what the Birds might do or feel out. And I didn't write down any running backs, but I did see a couple names, even fullbacks like Patrick Ricard, just like a fullback, old school. You're down on the one to help Hurts with the run blocking a little bit. Even guys like that I thought about, and I was like, maybe it might make sense. But there were a couple running backs. I think the main one that I saw was Ronald Jones. That's it. And he's a free agent next year. And I think he's kind of underutilized. And Leonard Fournette is also a free agent next year,
That's
too.
who I like. Yeah, that's who I like. Because if both of them play for the same team, obviously, but if they feel confident with like Ronald Jones moving forward because he doesn't cost as much, I would love Leonard Fournette. I actually haven't. You speak of being an LSU fan. They're not my favorite, but they're one of my favorite college football teams. And I actually have an LSU Leonard Fournette T-shirt jersey in white. So it's a white T-shirt, and then it has like the purple font on it. So I rock that.
Draft rumors that the Eagles might draft him.
What'd you say?
Do you remember when we were younger, probably maybe 15 or 16, we might have been then, but there were rumors that the Eagles might draft him?
Yeah, I remember that.
That would have been crazy.
That would have been because, just think about our team now. So, wow.
Dean, you made a good point earlier, too. I don't want to skip it, about the offensive line. And I just thought about Leonard Fournette with our offensive line. Look at what he does with Tampa Bay and Tristan Wirfs.
Tampa Bay's a good offensive line. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah. Tristan Wirfs, you're a great right tackle. Don't get me wrong. But you're no Lane Johnson yet. Yet, at least.
Yeah.
And I think Leonard Fournette behind Lane Johnson running on the right side of the ball with a mobile tackle. I'm a little bit sad that Brandon Brooks retired.
And that's going to hurt a little bit, but we have somebody named Landon Dickerson, who I thought was one of the best value picks in the whole draft class last year. And he is a big baller, dude.
Guard, right? Who do you think could replace that right guard? Because I think right now, by default, it's Herbig, right?
Yeah, it would be Herbig, but I know that we have guys on the practice squad who might compete for a roster spot. We don't know who those guys are necessarily right now. We have to see how the draft shakes out. But I know that we signed a veteran guy. I forget his name, but apparently he was able to play guard and tackle. He's slipping my mind right now, but maybe you give that guy a shot. I think he might have been from the Patriots, or I'm drawing a blank right now, but we signed him mid-season just to have some depth, and maybe that guy gets some playing time.
Yeah.
More questions good. Coming in. Come on, more questions.
Just a heads up, Dean, I got to hop off at 8:55 in 4 minutes just because I got to hop in for 302 Birds. I do all of our StreamYard stuff for us.
Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, no problem at all. I'm hoping more of these questions pile in so we can end the show on a high note.
If not, I have one that I think that you would really, really enjoy.
Sure, and then I have a question for you.
Perfect. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you. So I'm looking at I literally made a list of these free agents. And one guy that I think is really, really interesting is a defensive end. And I thought about it for a long time today, if I'd want this guy in an Eagles uniform or not. But it's Jadeveon Clowney. And you know how Howie Roseman is, and you know how Clowney is, and you know how one-year deals are in the NFL, a tested deal. Howie definitely values the offensive line, or the defensive line, and getting pressure on the QB. And Howie could look at Clowney like a project guy. Like you said earlier, I'm tired of project guys. So, I don't know. What do you think of Clowney? Could you actually root for him in Midnight Green?
I could. I know the blatant hit, is kind of what people remember. However, it might just be his physical nature and how he plays, but I don't know if Clowney's declining. I really can't tell what his production has been since he's been bouncing around teams for a while. But when he first came into the draft, the Houston Texans rightfully thought that he would be, the guy. So I wouldn't mind. I would say thumbs up. Let's get Clowney in here for the right price.
I agree.
So my question for you, we really don't get to talk about this much on Code Green Show, but let's talk about Madden Ultimate Team. Why don't you give me 3 things that you do not like about the online Madden play, and I'll give you a couple of mine because I find myself getting easily frustrated, and I kind of just want to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah, no worries. So I've been playing Ultimate Team for most of the year, as I do, and I haven't played it, honestly, Dean. I haven't played Ultimate Team in about a month, just because I've been busy with the podcast stuff, number one. But number two, anytime I hop on Madden now, I'm just playing franchise. Because and there was a video I posted on our TikTok, I'm sure you've seen it, of Justin Jefferson, off to Tennessee if not, and he gets both feet down.
Yeah.
And it's not a touchdown. And it's like some of those plays you just watch, or even the gameplay, like you get it in Ultimate Team. It's just getting to the point now where if you have like a stacked team, the game is going to do stupid stuff to just
If you had to narrow it down to 3 things, what do you think they would be?
Okay, so I got to say, just the general feel of the game, like just how it feels now, because 99 overall will get the edge, like even if you're used to it. Number 2 is probably, I got to say, the soundtrack this year, there's only like 12 songs on it. There used to be like 24 or 30, remember? So that, and then last but not least, I would probably have to say they got rid of like the old chemistries that you could kind of have before.
Yeah.
The like balanced offense and all that. I like that. I was kind of mad that they got rid of that.
So yeah, a lot of really good points, and I echo that completely. I absolutely agree with you. My 3 are number 1, loop blitzing. I feel like loop blitzing is absolutely cancer, especially if you are playing squads, because you could have 2 guys coming off the edge and absolutely crush you before you could even look at a read. So that's number 1. Number 2, DDA. Are you familiar with DDA? So DDA is when they match up a lower overall opponent and they give them almost every 50-50 scenario to kind of make the teams even out. And the reason why I know this exists is because when you play head-to-head versus a friend, there's a little setting that you could put in, a yes or no, that evens out the teams. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that competitive matchmaking, they do that because if an overall like 98 team plays against a 95, there has to be some evening like metric there, or it's not going to be fun for, the lesser opponent of the 2. Number 3. Ooh, this is tough. This is really tough. Number 3.
There's so many things that are wrong with it.
There's so many things wrong with it, but just to summarize in 3, I'm going to probably say 50-50 scenarios. And I feel like there's a lot of scripting involved with that. So a team is down in the game. All you have to do is get into, so scenario is there's 1 timeout left. You have to force the defense to use a timeout. And then once you get a first down, you can kneel it, right? The game, for whatever reason, is not going to allow you to get that first down because they want the game to be tied at the end of the day. They want to give the opponent the benefit of the doubt and almost time the game up and make it even, because they don't want people getting frustrated and they don't want to be receiving hate mail and they don't want to have to update the game again because they're lazy. And the last thing that I'm going to include with that is, instead of releasing all of these cards, why don't you actually work on the quality of the game? Why don't you patch something in the game that you can't loop blitz somebody and you can't, there's so many things I could go on and on with, Dalton.
It's getting to be just, like you said, frustrated. Like I could go on and on too, because there's so many things that are wrong with it.
It goes down to the premise, like, is there a skill gap or is there not? Am I going to go into a game being better than an opponent and lose because they're actually better than me? Or am I going to lose to an outside force and a game just being horribly made?
Yeah.
So, I don't know if anybody from PA is listening, but you have 2 Madden players that have been playing probably since they were little kids. And if you want to keep us along for any longer, you better work on the game and stop releasing so many cards, because we do not care. The game quality is not it.
Yeah, and the cards aren't even as good as they used to be. Like, that's the last thing that I'll say. Remember when we were younger and they used to have that program called the Movers for the free agency, and the cards used to be so sick. They used to do like the cards, they don't even put any more effort into them. Like, I'm not going to lie, like Madden 16, Madden 17, peak Madden cards. Like, just the visual, the aspect of how they played. Like, now the cards, they won't even release like a 99 until February, and the game's still broken. It's terrible.
So last question, on a limb here, I'm going to go 10-7. I think the Eagles do more right than wrong next year. And I think that the fact that the Eagles made the playoff berth this year, is a testament to, not only the players that they have in the locker room, but Nick Sirianni and his game plan. So I think if we bring in some faces, guys that can start and be difference makers, I could easily see our wins increasing.
Yeah, I love what you just said, Dean. And the more I think about it in my head, the more it rings a bell. 10-7, and I think that's the perfect record for them next year. I think if Jalen Hurts can lead the team to that, the team is his, and maybe win one playoff game. Not a lot of high expectations for next season, but I want to see one playoff win next season if we can. I think that we should definitely. We don't have to win the NFC East, but I think looking at the NFC, looking at the Bucs losing Tom Brady,
Yes.
looking at a lot of the teams, we should definitely be a wild card.
Losing Tom Brady and then Aaron Rodgers most likely being on a different team next year.
Yep.
That leaves the NFC almost wide open besides a team called the Rams, who are in the Super Bowl this year. So, Dalton, just to wrap up the show, thank you so much for joining. And Dalton, tell everybody where they could reach you.
Yeah, guys, check us out on TikTok at 302Birds, Instagram at 302Birds, Facebook at 302Birds, basically any kind of social media platform you can imagine at 302Birds. And I just want to say a very special thank you to my good buddy Dean here for having me on his show. Love the content here, man. Love the brand that you're building, and you have a lot to be proud of. So salute to you, and thank you for having me on, man.
Thank you, man. You take care, and I look forward to having you on in the future.
You too, brother. Thanks again.